I need that moment. I need that song so I know this is what they want and we can go this direction.
Me standing here at HI IBIZA, playing with black coffee, I would never have thought it.
In the last 20 minutes, something clicked and I was rolling. I didn't even want to get off at that point. What's up, everybody? Welcome to another podcast on Brodie Nero TV. You know what to do already. Please subscribe to the channel, like the video, comment on your favorite part. I'll be sure to reply. Always appreciate the support, trying to build something special here. And it's all love. So we got Jamiie in the building, all the way here from Berlin. How's Bali so far?
It's a vibe. It's amazing. I had some quality time, actually, after I played my gig here at Miss Fish. And I was just chilling and going to Ubud for some spa moments and for a little tour, monkey forest, rice fields, you know.
Yeah, amazing. It's cool because actually I was talking about this with Dean yesterday, how a lot of times when the artists come here and I get to meet them, they're here for such a short period of time. Like one artist we had here, I think it was Agents of Time. They landed at like 9 p.m. They were on stage by 12. And then at the airport by 10 a.m. the next day. So I didn't have the chance or the opportunity to meet them, connect at all.
Yes.
And then, of course, they didn't get to see beautiful Bali. So I said, Dean, you did it right because you stayed at least a week, I think. And then yourself too, Jamiie, you got to experience some cool things and get recalibrated, refreshed.
Yeah, also just to see where you actually are, because exactly what you just mentioned, you know, coming here, landing, going to the hotel, freshen up, playing the gig, going back, and then straight to the airport. You sometimes just don't know where was I right now, you know?
Yeah.
Which country. Sometimes you wake up and wonder like, oh my God, where am I actually?
Yeah, exactly. So I imagine you got some time to reset and recalibrate, like we said. Do you think you got, when you go on certain trips or any special places, do you draw any inspiration that you feel might positively impact like your performance or what you're doing with music?
Yes, it definitely does, because your surrounding kind of shapes you a little bit, right? It can inspire you, and it's definitely different, for example, when you're looking for music at home, at your desk, or preparing a set maybe. It can be totally different when you all of a sudden land in a different city or in a different country. All the influences around you trigger something in you. It changes your mood, you know, maybe you see something and it reminds you of something, and then you start to like shape everything around it. So it definitely has an influence.
Yeah. Actually, that just reminds me. So I usually try to go at least once a month somewhere other than Canggu in this area, because I wake up, I'm pretty like, I'm a routine guy. So I wake up, I have my schedule, I'm just on the computer working on music, downloading music, etc. But I always notice that when I get that couple days to get out of my normal environment, it gives me that inspiration, some fresh perspective. So when I come back to my routine, I'm feeling better.
It's super important. For example, even in Berlin, when I'm at home and I start to work on music, or I have to prepare a set, and sometimes I feel stuck, then, for example, I just take a walk. I go outside and try to just lift my mind off that, get some inspiration, and then I come back and I'm refreshing. Maybe I saw a little bird in the sky, and you look at the bird, and then all of a sudden it reminds you maybe of a track which is called whatever, something with bird, you know? It gives you definitely some input. And I think it's really important to do that from time to time, except just being in your little, you know, box.
Yeah, completely agree. So this isn't your first time to Bali. You've been a couple times before, I think you had said. And now that you've played a place like Miss Fish, you came to my party, She's With Us last night. I think you took a trip to Savai as well.
Yes.
What's your opinion on the music scene here?
Good question. I mean, what I can tell, definitely that Afro House made its way to Bali as well, like basically everywhere in the world. And from the time I started to play Afro House, which was really like in 2016, to now, the sound changed, of course. So basically the Afro House sound you hear here is, I'm always careful to use the word commercial, because sometimes it has a negative connotation to it.
Yes.
You know?
Yep.
But of course, it's a different Afro House from what it was like 2 years ago, when it was more underground, not so mainstream. Now it has lots of pop elements, and you can definitely feel that it also arrived here. And it's not a negative thing, it has a good vibe, it has positive vibes, it's fun, people are really enjoying it. And this is what I could see. They were really enjoying the music, I think this new type of Afro house, I don't know what type of subgenre it could have to Afro house, because you have Afro melodic, you have Afro tech, which I also heard here, Afro melodic, Afro tech. I think it's an easy approach, for people to get acquainted with Afro house, and then maybe they are more interested and start to dig deeper, or they are open to different sounds from Afro house, like the more heavier sounds like Afro tech and Afro melodic.
Yes.
So yeah, this is what I could witness, that most artists here are going into that direction, and then of course within that sound putting their own sound uniqueness into it. You can have somebody who plays Afro house, but maybe with a twist towards vibey house music, happy music. Then you can have an Afro house DJ who maybe likes to play more the darker side, more heavy bass and loud synths, Yeah, that was really cool to see that the people are really just embracing the sound and that they're enjoying it. This is what I could see.
Amazing. That's a really cool perspective. Yeah, it reminds me of something. We had Patrice Baumel here earlier this year, and he had a great time, played an amazing set. What a journey at Atlas Super Club on a Thursday night that I do there. And his feedback after being in Bali was, I think it had been some time since he's been here, and he had said something to the effect of he feels it has like this cosmopolitan vibe, and he feels that Bali could be considered something like Asia's Ibiza.
I heard that before.
Yeah, it's going that direction. So I hope the best for Bali, because I think it's a special place. I've been here for 2.5 years now, and I've seen the scene grow, but it was cool to hear your perspective and what you thought about being here.
Thank you.
Super nice. So I want to talk more about this subgenres of Afro house and how you approach DJing and everything. But my first question here is more of the entry point of deciding you wanted to get into music. So that being said, at what point in your life did you say, I want a career in music and I'm going to go for it? And was it a scary jump and decision to make and commit to?
Oh, this was totally unintentional. So how it happened was, I was sitting on a birthday party with some of my good friends in the living room, and one friend, Pam, she just came back from Ghana. She stayed there for a year, and that's where she learned to DJ. And another friend of mine, she was always spending the winters in Cape Town, like the Berlin gray, cold winters in Cape Town, and she was about to leave. And then we were thinking, let's just throw a party from us for our friends, for our network. We had a friend, he had a small club you could rent, and basically my friend was only DJing, and I just looked in her computer, I had no idea what it was, and I was just selecting some tracks and loaded it and pressed start and stop. I could not mix nothing at all.
Right.
And it was laptop and controller, But I was really intrigued by it, because I saw how she was like playing around with the crowd, how they were vibing to the music, and just to be able to showcase music you like and make people happy with it. I was it was exuberant, and it took me kind of, I think, 1.5 more years to actually really start to DJ, like start to learn how to DJ myself. I got a Newmark controller. I downloaded Serato DJ. This is how I started, and we threw another party, and then actually there was a guy who was running a hip hop club in Berlin, and he booked me and my friend Pam for the night, and I was like, oh my God, okay, cool. And so I really started easily. My daughter was still little back then.
Yeah.
And so it was just like a hobby, and maybe I played every 3 months, 1 gig, but really I had not the slightest idea that it could turn into something. It was really a natural progression, 1 gig then turned into 2 gigs, 2 gigs into 3. My daughter got older, years passed by, and all of a sudden it snowballed into something, I just kept on doing it without actually thinking, and then it just happened in a way.
Wow. Yeah. So was there sort of like a turning point where it was super serious and there was lots of momentum, but you had to make a decision like, either leaving another job or career path and saying, like, I really have to go all in on this?
Definitely, but also not 100% like that. It was, again, slow in progression because, as I said, my main priority is, of course, still my daughter.
Right.
But back then, even more so because she was little. Now she's 17. She's almost an adult and doesn't need me as much anymore. So I can, dedicate myself even more to building a career. But back then, it's hard when you're a single mother. You cannot just travel the world all the time and leave your child at home. I mean, of course you could if you have your grandmother or maybe a nanny, some people, but you're going to sacrifice something, which
Important
is
years.
not having time with your child. So it's a decision everybody has to make for themselves, right? So my decision for me was I want to be there for her because it's only once in a lifetime. She's going to grow up. She won't need me as much anymore. So with that change came more and more the idea that, okay, maybe I could actually turn this into a career. So what happened is I had a 9-to-5 job, which turned slowly into a part-time job.
Ah, okay. Got it.
And then from a part-time job, it turned into only 2 days a week.
Wow.
And then from last year on, actually, October, was it? Yeah. It turned into only DJing.
Wow, just October of last year.
Yes, exactly.
Oh, wow. So up until this time, October last year, you still had this couple
Other
shifts
job.
a week. Wow.
Yes, exactly. So I was working because I wanted to have definitely an income where I know it's coming every month because
I was going to ask, yes.
I had to have some securities, I have to pay the rent, the food, the schools and everything, My child needs clothes, I don't know, whatever she wants. Now it's makeup. No, she can buy this by herself. But so I needed to have this security. But now, because also gigs are coming more, and of course, then I decided, okay, I want to dedicate myself now to this career. Now it's the time, and so that's basically what I'm trying now.
Wow,
it's scary at times. But
I was going to ask about that.
Definitely.
Yeah. What gives you the confidence, or what do you sort of turn to get through those like unfamiliar waters or scary times, as you said?
I think you really have to believe that this can lead into something. If you don't believe it, and especially if you don't believe in yourself, you start to having doubts, and that makes you insecure, and then you wonder, oh, why am I doing this? Will I succeed? But these are thoughts you should. I mean, they're coming. Everybody of us has at moments like, oh man, should I? Oh my God. But you need to have this unwavering doubt that you will succeed, and that someday, you really reap the fruits of what you're sowing. So. And also what's a good thing is to think about an alternative, like saying, okay, what if I'm not doing this right now? What could be the alternative for me? And if it's something you definitely don't want to do, you definitely put in more work in your career, so that you can proceed. But yeah, I think it's belief. You need to believe.
Yes, beautifully said. So as mentioned, for this interview today, I wanted to talk a bit about your career as a DJ, some of the music you've released, and where you see yourself going. First, I'd love to start with the category of being a DJ. So you had said something that I really admired the other day after your Miss Fish gig, and you said, I'm paraphrasing, but this is the idea. So you had said you wanted to give the crowd an unpredictable Afro house and house music style set. You wanted to mix in some house music and give it your own spin aside from the typical Afro house hits. Could you elaborate a bit on why this was important to you, firstly, and secondary to that, how did you go about executing that, like tactically, from a performance standpoint?
Good question. So yes, you paraphrased it quite good. This is what I said in the essence. And for me, it's important to showcase also other tracks rather than what's being heard all the time. Of course, the people are fine. They're vibing. They're throwing their hands in the air with familiar sounds. That's what the Afro house landscape at the moment is shaped a little bit. It's a specific sound people are familiar to. If you play sometimes something else, for example, I played an Afro track once, and a person came to me like, "Oh, I thought you were playing Afro house," and I'm like, "This is Afro house," you know?
Right, right.
But they have this certain idea of Afro house in mind, this kind of poppy sound, what's dominating at the moment.
Yes.
Which kind of raised after the pandemic. So I wanted to make them notice that it's something else, you know, make them listen, because, you know, the rest of the music is just like passing by. Sometimes you do it, but then when you hear different things, you're like, oh, I never heard that. What's that track? So I want to make them curious. There's always a danger that they might not like it, you know, because sometimes what you don't know, you're in the beginning like, but it also
Resistant.
Can be the opposite, can be like, oh my God, that's cool. Oh, finally something else. It's not the same track I heard all the time. So I really try to take them on a journey, you know, to educate them a little bit, to showcase new music, because we all know people Shazam sometimes, you know, they're like, okay, what's the track? Oh, let me Shazam it. Maybe it's an artist they never knew, so they discover also new artists. And yeah, this is what I'm trying, you know. I'm trying to blend in different influences, different styles, also to narrate a journey.
Yes. Yes.
Definitely. And also, you know, I'm coming from Berlin. I mean, not coming, but living in Berlin. I played at Watergate as a resident many years. And of course, it also had an influence on me, you know, because Watergate is not necessarily Afro house. We don't have a huge Afro house scene in Berlin. So I'm used to play also different sounds, you know, like melodic, a little bit harder, direction to tech house, and I really tried to merge that.
Yeah, that's nice to hear. One of the things that I talk about this with some of my colleagues, and it's we all face it as event planners and organizers, and it's that we're noticing, like, for a venue, the success is perceived as seeing the bottles flying everywhere, packed, busy, all of this stuff, and we figured out a formula to do that. But some of the partners, I mean, when you have a club, there's generally a bunch of partners involved, and some of them feel like the sound is too commercial. I hate to use that term, but it just makes simple language to understand our points. And they just feel like, man, we don't want to be compared to other commercial venues. We want to go back to the essence of what we're known for, which is cool music, exclusive, slightly more underground, let's say. And then there's this sort of, this battle, for lack of better words, between partners. And it's like, well, we don't want to do anything to affect the sales of the venue. And you know, this is the conundrum that we're in. What would you say is the best approach to try and positively make change here? For me, I try to have conversations with talent and say, hey, like, for example, if we create some sort of context here, let's say you play over the course of a night 25 more commercial style songs, maybe try and play 20 this night, like just a slight reduction, something, incorporate some more unreleased stuff, something more cool, something more underground. Do you have any thoughts or input on how we could approach trying to make this positive change without abruptly or too abrasively, you know, affecting the crowd or sales or anything like that?
Well, first of all, of course, you cannot directly talk to a DJ, an artist, and say like, hey, I wish that you play this and that tonight, you know, because it affects the creativity of the person.
Yes.
I think a certain homework needs to be done in booking the artists and see what they are usually playing, and then mix it up in the night. So maybe you have one DJ in the night who plays this type of music, then another DJ who maybe serves more into the underground direction, or somebody who in general mixes it up very good, you know, having different styles in their sets. And then I would say, I mean, I'm not an event, I don't plan events, you know, I'm not a promoter, so I have no idea. But the way I do it, I would really try to create a lineup what makes sense, who plays after whom, you know, like having one DJ where you know, okay, this is definitely somebody, a great starter, doing a great warm up to get people in the vibe, you know, start drinking. Then you get the next person. Depends on how long the night is. Maybe this could already be the headliner, and then somebody who closes, or you have another person before the headliner, you know. But it's definitely super important that you don't have, for example, somebody playing who's like playing very dynamic and impulsive, and then after this having somebody who's maybe a little bit vibey or slower, and then again having somebody who's playing like hard and dynamic, you know.
The night's got to flow.
The night's got to flow, so you really have to make sure like who's playing when, which slot, what type of music is a person generally playing. I think these are the things how I would do it, because it's so, yeah, you cannot tell an artist what to do. And as an artist, you have, of course, also the responsibility yourself to look around a little bit and also decide where do you want to be, you know? Do you want to play the sound? Don't you want to play the sound? Are you okay with also serving a little bit? Because, of course, we as artists, we want to do what we want that night. Maybe you want to play a jungle banger, you know, or whatever, 140 BPM. But sometimes you're like, maybe it's not now the surrounding, the frame to do it.
Yes.
You know, you have to bend a little bit, of course, towards the night as well. And I think the best thing, what I'm trying is to do the best of both worlds, you know, depending where I'm playing. If I know I play in a venue with has a typical, more the mainstream sound, to say, of course, I try to go into this direction as well, because the people who go there, they have a certain expectation, which doesn't mean that I only serve the expectation. I also want to give them something new.
Yes.
You know, that they're like, okay, what is this? Oh, that's cool, you know?
Yeah.
I think, to make a long story short, I hope I was not circling too much. But I think this would be my approach, I guess.
Yeah, no, it helps huge. And just as you're speaking it, it really, the more in depth we talk about what a DJ has to do, I think people underestimate how technical and how aware and adaptable a DJ has to be, like a good DJ. And this is what separates the good from the great, right? Because, I mean, I can think of in the beginning of when I was DJing, I've been doing it for about 5 years now, but because I was so nervous to play at like a new club, I would like pre-program a set. Like I know what I'm doing from start to finish, because I was like, I don't want to be scrambling and losing and stuff like that. And then you realize, and some nights, much to my surprise, it worked, you know?
Sometimes it works,
but that's rare. And you don't want to depend on that at all, because again, a good DJ is going to read the room, simply put, right?
You have to. I mean, preparation is key, of course, you know. It must not be a set list, like a track list, like track by track by track. Of course not. It can be a good, like, lifeline, you know, when you like start to swim a little bit, like, okay, let me look into that list again. You can start with some tracks you prepared. It's always good to have a starter, you know, and then you see where the night takes you.
Yes.
Of course, maybe you have a folder where you throw your tracks in and say like, okay, this is what I might want to play tonight, so that you find the tracks actually. But I have a good example. I was also like doing this, preparing my set list from track 1 to track whatever 20, all the cue points, you know, I knew when to go in where, you know. I needed that. And then I had a gig, it was on Cyprus. It's a long time ago. I think it was 2019 or something like that, or 18 maybe. I think 2018. And then I prepared like a really like a peak time cool track, because in my mind at the time I was playing, I was like, okay, I'm gonna start, it's gonna be banging, and yes. So I came, and the slot I was playing was not the peak time itself. It became full a little bit later. So I could not start with this set, because it was like banging, and I was like, oh my God, what am I doing now? And I was becoming so nervous, you know, because I was like, okay, I cannot start with this track because it's way too intense, you know. So I had to just start with something, and then I had to kind of, navigate, and that was a good lesson, and it made me confident that I do not have to prepare a track list track by track. I think in the beginning it's quite normal, many people are doing it, and the longer you play, the more experience you have, and the more confidence you gain, you know, and more, of course, also routine in a way.
Yes.
You are becoming more free, you know. You don't prepare maybe all the cue points because you know the track, you know, I go in there, that's a good part to get out of the track, I loop it, you know, filter it out, the other kick comes in, you can play around a little bit.
Yeah.
But yes, in the beginning,
yeah, one thing too I noticed, when you start gigging a lot, like routinely and regularly, you know your music catalog. You know what's in there. So it's like the pre-planning, it becomes excessive, because you know your music so well and what's in there. And then once you get in the room, you can say, okay, this is the vibe. It's more chill. I go into the chill folder.
Exactly. Yeah. But to circle back, so yes, and sometimes you start with something, you have this idea like, okay, I want to do this tonight. And you start and you think like, yeah. And after the, I don't know, let's say 6 tracks, you're like looking at the crowd and you're like, I don't know. I don't think they're getting it, and then you have to think about, okay, what could you do now? And sometimes it's this one track you play and then it changes everything. The crowd goes wild and then like, okay, this is what they want.
Yes.
Okay, let's go in this direction. And then,
Yeah. And then it's on.
I like this turning point sometimes when all of a sudden like, boom, and you're like, okay, I know what you need.
Yeah.
Okay, let's do this.
Yeah, it's crazy you mentioned that because last night I was going off the fly when I was playing at Miss Fish and I was like, man, I need that moment. I need that song so I know this is what they want and we can go this direction. And maybe in the last 20 minutes something clicked and I was rolling. I didn't even want to get off at that point, but...
Oh my God, I know this sometimes too. You're almost done with the set and all of a sudden you're like, oh my God, no, I don't want to stop.
Yes.
I don't want to stop. And you're hoping that the next DJ is super delayed, but you see the person already in the booth and you're like, oh, one more.
It's true. It's true. Cool. I got a couple more questions around DJing specifically. So in the beginning of your career, you had mentioned already you had like a Numark controller and the laptop.
Oh my God, yes.
When you realized you wanted to do this more seriously and it came down to like practicing, and this is maybe getting booked for gigs routinely, what was your routine like, let's say, in terms of like practicing? Were you setting up everything and giving an hour every day, a couple hours a day, a couple times a week? What was your approach?
So let me tell you this. It's actually really funny. So yeah, when I was like a hip-hop laptop DJ, I was playing, like I said, hip-hop, afro beats and dance, or, like more like urban type of music, some afro house. And so to my first gig at Watergate, in 2016 in December, it was an Afro House party. Back then, imagine, with the Rice Collective in Berlin, yes. We were throwing Afro House parties. I mean, I joined the collective a little bit later then, after. But they were already throwing the first Afro House parties in Berlin in 2016. They booked Black Coffee twice for this, back then. But what I wanted to say is, I wasn't able to place the DJs yet. So I came to that gig with my huge, I think UDG is a brand with this, I don't want to make, so with this beep brand bag, with my controller inside, my laptop stand, my computer, and I was setting this up, and they were like, oh, okay. They asked me for the rider before, and I was like, yeah, I'll bring my own equipment. So I was setting up everything. And oh my God, this computer was so old. I had to have the power plugged in the entire time because the battery was dead, So I gaffered it with gaffer tape so that it's not pulling out. And I was playing like this 2 hours. So I was playing with the controller and laptop, as you said. By the time it was already a Pioneer controller, at least.
Cool.
So when I had this first gig at Watergate, I was thinking, no, I have to make the switch to CDJs. I cannot come to these gigs. I want to be also industry standard. I want to go on to the next thing, to be more professional. I don't want to travel and have this huge bag on my huge backpack on my back all the time. So I asked them actually, or actually they offered me, can't remember properly, maybe a mix, to practice there at the CDJs.
Wow, super
So
nice.
I went there, let's say, once or twice a week in the evening to practice, to play with CDJs.
Great.
And also get familiar with record books, organize my music files, playlists, cues, and then get familiar with the mixer, watching tutorials about the mixers and CDJs, and then step by step. So I think it's important to have the opportunity to be able to practice on CDJs.
Yep.
Because they're super expensive and you cannot expect from anyone to buy the setup. I mean, come on, it's crazy, you know? Unless you have lots of money. Most people don't. So find somewhere. Maybe there's a club. Maybe there's a local club. Maybe you can practice there where you maybe anyway are playing. We have some studios in Berlin. I think it's coming from London, basically, the idea, where you can actually rent a little studio and they have a whole setup. So you can play with the DJs there. And I think it's up to you how often you want to practice on it. I think it's also how you feel and how confident you feel and how often you play, because while playing you get practice, of course.
For sure.
But from time to time, even now, I go back and I'm like, damn, I want to practice a certain technique, just to see, like, how does it sound when I use this filter, or get new ideas for transitions, so.
Wow, great. That's really cool to hear. 'Cause the next question I had was, do you still allocate any time now to practice and work on any technical skills for performance?
Yeah, sometimes I definitely do because I see what other DJs are doing. I mean, especially in Afro House, it's different than when you're playing. Although tech house uses also a lot like snare, drum rolls, and everything, and effects. But in Afro House, you use them a little bit differently, and there are DJs like Jeff, Black Coffee, Shimza. They're doing amazing tricks,
Yeah.
and of course, I'm like, okay, what are they doing? I'm checking this out and I'm trying to learn it, to maybe not copy it, but use parts of it, as an inspiration. So yeah, once in a while, I definitely go back and check it out,
Yeah, and especially with a lot of the upgrades on like the V10 mixer,
Exactly.
the CDJ 3000s, there's new features. And even just the other day, there's another great DJ, Miners, shout out Miners here in Bali. And in my opinion, he's one of the best technically skilled DJs here in Bali for sure. And when I see him doing some of the stuff with the newer features on the 3000s and on the V10, I was like, whoa. I was like, that's cool. And
Yeah,
I'm going to
exactly.
try that because I think we humans, we tend to be creatures of habits, and we find something that works and it's cool and the crowd receives it well. But then it's like, you've been doing the same trick for a year or two, for example. So like, what's something fresh I can do?
Yeah, I also recommend to not try new things while you're playing,
True.
I was thinking like, okay, let's try this. Oh my God, it did not really work. I mean, it was not here, it was another gig, but all of a sudden I was like, oh, what's that? Trying to like pretending it was supposed to be like this, but it definitely was not, but it worked out. But I was like, okay, I go back into the studio and practice that before.
Right.
Playing this on the road,
Yeah, it makes
it's
sense.
better than just road testing like this, so.
Cool.
Yeah.
At this point in your career, how much time do you spend listening to new music, downloading, organizing playlists, all that kind of stuff? What does your weekly regimen look like now?
That's a good question because it really depends on how much do I travel, but I started to find a specific day where I'm going through my promos. Before I was like listening every day, a little bit here, a little bit there, but then everything was scattered. And I like to dedicate one day to really like go through my promos, go through my promo emails. Of course, sometimes you don't make it, but I really try to have one specific day. It must not be the same day. It can be a Tuesday, it can be Wednesday, it depends. Every week can be a different day, depending on my schedule.
Sure.
So to have one day, but other than that, in terms of listening to music, digging new music is mostly on a daily basis because sometimes I hear something like, oh my God, what is this? And I check out, what is it? Oh, cool. And then like, okay, who's this artist? Oh my God. And then I check out the catalog, So it's like snowballing from there, Like you start with something and all of a sudden 2 hours later you find yourself somewhere totally else, I'm like, oh, how did I get here? Then all of a sudden I land, for example, in documentary and I watch this documentary, like, wait, I just started with this track and now I'm watching this documentary because this track lead me to that track and But yeah, I would say every day at least an hour or two, I definitely go through some music.
Yeah,
and I like it, to discover. Also, when you played yesterday, there was one track I was like, that's
nice.
a good one,
Okay, cool.
So, of course, I draw also inspiration when I hear other artists play, I think that's totally normal, It's great. So I'm always happy to listen to colleagues, what they are playing and see what they're vibing to and to discover other artists.
Nice. Yeah, one of the things I thoroughly enjoy is being on Beatport, and there'll be one song that I hear a snippet on Instagram, for example. So I'm like, okay, I got to go buy this, and then it'll lead me to a label, and the next thing it leads me to another label, and then I'm just on this label for like an hour or two, just digging from releases 3, 4, 5 years ago. Like it's a cool process.
Exactly. Yeah, I was actually working at Beatport.
No way.
Yeah, I was doing the curation for Afro House for almost 2 years.
Whoa, cool.
Yeah. I started that next to my part-time job I had. I started the extra 2 hours Beatport, and I quit the part-time job and only had this 2 days of work. This was the Beatport work then.
No
And I
way,
was working,
cool.
as the Afro House curator. That was really, really great.
Wow.
Especially it wasn't during the pandemic, right? But then last year, October, I had to stop because I could not do both anymore, like traveling, taking
Right.
care of myself, and then working for Beatport. So with a heavy heart, I left,
Right.
but I really enjoyed that time because at least 2 days a week I had to go through so much music, and a little bit too much sometimes because then you stop listening to your promos when you have to listen to all the catalog for what's being released next for the week you have to choose. And that was intense, I have to say. Lots of music I was listening through.
Wow.
So
That's insane. That's so cool. I mean, Beatport is like literally the hub for electronic music that all DJs and producers are going to. What's that operation like? Is it based out of Germany, right?
there's not there was an office in
Oh,
Germany, in
okay.
Berlin, but not anymore. So there's an
Okay.
office in London, there's offices in Denver.
Okay, got it.
But yeah, I mean, it was definitely great to work there. It was an
Yeah.
amazing experience to
Wow.
connect with artists, labels, and everything. It gave me a good insight look behind the scenes, how everything are rolling, like behind the scenes. How does it work? How are releases like being shown on Beatport? Because I had no idea about the selection process and everything. So that was really, really cool. And yeah, very meaningful time, definitely. It was great.
Yeah, I
But
mean, amazing
no
experience, I'm
chance
sure. Yeah.
anymore to do both,
Yeah,
because it's too
yeah.
much.
Life evolving, the next chapter of your life.
Yes.
That's cool. That's cool. So you'd mentioned black coffee earlier.
Hmm.
So I wanted to talk about a really cool YouTube short that I saw, and it's a B2B of you with black
Oh
coffee.
my God, yes.
Huge. I have a whole bunch of questions around that. How did that come about? And how did a B2B with an icon like black coffee change your career, impact it?
It changed a lot, to be honest. So I was playing at High last year in June. It was end of June. I think it was the 25th of June or 24th. I can remember. So I had this High booking, and I was really yearning for it. Almost like everyone was praying, like, oh, maybe it was on my bucket list. Oh, my vision board. Bucket list sounds weird. I have a vision board as an artist, what I would like to achieve, so that I have it, seeing it with my eyes, so I can work towards this direction. And so I had it on my vision board, and I was just hoping that one day it's gonna happen, that I'm gonna play it High, with black coffee, of course. And then last year, all of a sudden, they told me like, yes, you're going to play High this summer. And I was like, oh my God, super excited. Oh my God, I'm gonna play it High. So I did the opening. No,
Manifestation.
really, did the opening. I brought my girls with me from Berlin. It was amazing. And then they told me in the evening also, like, you're going to play back to back with Black Coffee. And it's only going to be you because Martinez brothers, they were leaving. And so when I heard this, I was like, oh my God, I can't believe it. So I was super excited in the first hour, and the first 2 hours it was fine. I played my gig and all was good, but then I had to wait until Black Coffee was done with the show, right, in the mornings. And I didn't want to leave. I wanted to stay there. But in the end, I just stayed in the backstage area, sitting like this, totally scared. My heart was pounding all the time. My hands, my palms were sweaty. I could not talk. Really, my friends, are you okay? Like, don't talk to me. I was so nervous. I was about to throw up, literally. I was just sitting there like, okay, 1 more hour, 2 more hours. And then they told me like, okay, the time is now. And I just switched to autopilot, went to the booth, my hands were shaking, putting my stick inside like this, really. And then I started the first track and boom, it worked. And I was so relieved and we had so much fun and I was just so grateful. Like that was like a dream come true, like me standing here at HI IBIZA playing with black coffee. I would never have thought it when I was sitting in the living room with my girlfriends deciding, hey, let's throw a party for fun for our friends, To the time I had my first hip hop gig, to the time I had my first gig at Watergate with Rise, to the time this was everything in that moment was like, oh my God, that was amazing. So it definitely gave me a little boost and also gave me some reassurance, like, this is really what you want to do. Let's keep pushing. Let's continue, And so I was privileged again to play B2B with Fiona Kraft this year at HI before Black Coffee. And then, of course, in the end, also a B2B to B2B, with DJ Papa. He was there as well. And it was so much fun. And it's just, I cannot describe it. I'm just super grateful and happy and happy.
yeah. I mean, I'm just sitting in awe right now. I was getting goosebumps as you told the story. It's so cool. So did you have any interaction with him before the B2B? Like, did you talk to him or anything like that?
Just shortly only. Okay. Hi, cool. Just quick, but nothing specifically.
Yeah.
But I was just so proud, I was like, here I am, in my 40s, a mom of a child, 40s, standing there,
Yeah.
standing there. And I was like, I just want to be also like a good inspiration to women, like every life is different for some people. Some people have a fast trajectory. Some people have a slower progression. Some people have children later. Some people have children earlier, I had my child a little bit earlier, dedicated my life more or less to motherhood and the child. And now my time is slowly coming. And I just wanted to show, especially, of course, the women out there, like, hey, you can do it. You just have to continue what you're doing, believing, of course, working into it. It's not always easy. I know every circumstances are differently. Some people are more privileged than others. And but I did it too, like providing for my daughter by myself, trying to work on a career. It's hard sometimes because you cannot dedicate as much time. But in that moment, I was just like super proud. Like, yes.
How many hours was the B2B with Black Coffee?
I think it was like 1.5 maybe.
Oh, nice.
A little over an hour.
Cool.
But 1.5 max, I can't remember anymore, to be honest.
Yeah.
It was all a blur, and then I was really like, it was just like,
wow.
And I was just nervous.
yeah, but you did it. You showed up and you made it happen.
Yeah.
That's amazing. So, post B2B with Black Coffee, I'm super curious about like the literal impact it would have had. Like, does something like that of that magnitude, does it make the phone ring more? Does it make more people come with offers and opportunities?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah,
it always brings opportunity with you. Definitely.
Cool.
Yeah, definitely.
Cool. Amazing. Appreciate you sharing everything around the DJing stuff. I'm curious about the production now because you have a nice catalog on Beatport. I was looking at it. Nice history of releases. Tell us about your production and your thoughts on your production journey so far. You've been with big labels like, it looks like Watergate and Juna Deep. What's next? Where do you want to take your sound?
Wow, this is a good question for every artist. What's next? Where do you want to take your sound? Because we are always moving, you're always evolving. Your taste is changing,
Yeah.
From the day you started DJing, you probably will not play the same tracks anymore. Some of them stay with you forever. It's like all-time favorites. But some you're like, oh, what did I play there? When I look at streams, like old streams, I'm like, I would never play this track today anymore,
Right. Yeah.
But for me, I think for me, it's most important to find my voice as an artist. And this can be a specific sound. It doesn't have to be a specific genre, because nowadays everything is kind of crossing over, and I think my wish is to find a specific sound, maybe where you can say, that's the Jamiie sound. Let's see how this is gonna be in the creative process, because right now the releases I made are super different from another.
Yeah.
It was always going with what I was feeling in the moment, going with the flow, not really thinking strategically, just doing how I felt in the moment.
Yeah.
Basically, which is also good, of course. And I think it's totally valid if you want to do something like that as an artist. You do not have to have a specific sound, because you also do not maybe want to get stuck on a specific sound, because what happens when you don't have new ideas anymore and then something gets stale, when like the 10th track is like, okay, it's the same percussion, it's the same bass line again, it can become very boring. I just hope that, I find something which really resonates with me and which moves the people as well, what people like, and Yeah, let's see.
Yeah, amazing, amazing. Lots to look forward to for sure. Then, do you have any more releases on the calendar for this year or early next year? Or
There are a few things in the pipe, but I think they're all coming out next year. So I'm having a release on Sondela.
Cool, congrats.
With 2 girls, thank you.
Great label.
It's a only girl collaboration with Oa Oda. She's from Mozambique. And Tabia, she's from Namibia. And then me from Berlin. And so, yeah, we made a track together. Tabia's providing the vocals. It's coming out on Sondela, but I think it's in January next year. And then I have 2 remixes in the pipe. One I made for Motive Black. It's coming out on When We Dip. And then one remix for the Mike and Lazarus Man is coming out on Connected Frontline, but it's all next year.
Wow.
And then I'm also working on original stuff, which I'm also road testing here and there.
Nice.
And so, yeah, I can't wait when I come back from traveling to continue work on the tracks.
Amazing.
Because definitely I would love to do another EP.
Cool. What's your process like when something's ready for play, a song? Do you road test it, as you said, a bunch before you send like the final version for the label to sign? And when you do these road tests, does it sometimes affect, you take it back to the drawing board and maybe want to implement some changes?
To be honest, I cannot really answer this question because the remixes so far is a little bit different because it's already signed to a label, right?
Okay.
You know, so I do the remix. Of course, I test it a little bit. Does it work on the dance floor or not? Because you feel it better when you play it. If maybe a part is too long, too short, or too overloaded. But what I usually do when I do a remix, I finish the remix as I think, and then I send it back to the label or to the artist and say like, hey, this is what I did. How do you like it? And sometimes maybe they have an idea, like say like, yeah, maybe this part, can you, I don't know, I have the feeling it could use something else. Of course, you could say like, you know what, no, this is my track, this is the remix, take it. Mm-hmm. But sometimes it's also super cool, valid input. No? You start to listen like, yeah, actually, maybe let me change something here. And then it's done. In terms of original tracks, I was like super lucky to already had the label before the release, you know. So for Anjuna Deep, for example, they asked me if I have something.
Oh, nice.
Back then, yeah. And it was I did the track in the pandemic.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah, I know.
Usually everybody's chasing the labels.
I had a message on Instagram like, hey, Anjuna Deep, do you have something ready? I was like, oh.
Wow.
What? Me?
Cool.
And it was a try to see, you know, usually on Anjuna Deep, you release something. It was for the Exploration series, you know, and so I had this track. But in the end, I went into a different direction again, which does not really sound to the Anjuna Deep sound which they have. So I did not release anything on that label anymore. Yeah, because it has a specific sound, I think.
Yes.
And that track which I had was fitting, you know. It was, like I said, I made it in the pandemic. And it had some emotion, some dreamy aspects, and it just fit the vibe. That was perfect. And of course, I was super proud, you know, like, oh my God, they asked me if I have a release. Great.
Yeah. And
they had it on the Exploration series. With Watergate, it was just natural that it happens that I have a release on the label because I'm signed. I was a resident until now and signed to the agency. So that was natural. And then with Mona Berry, for example, also just like kind of happened. So I was lucky so far in that process. And let's see how I will continue now.
Yeah, amazing. So we'll have to make sure we follow Jamiie online. Look out for a big year next year. Sounds like it's a lot of releases, a lot of good music coming.
Just wait for it. It's coming.
Amazing. Cool. So switching gears here a little bit, you shared a really beautiful story with me the other day. I said I wanted to ask about it in the interview today. So, and actually you mentioned a bunch of it in the earlier part of the podcast, but the story was about how in the earlier part of your life when you had your daughter, you put her as the main priority.
Yes.
And everything the focus was to hustle and get things together for her and securing her future, which obviously is amazing. So, and congrats to her entering her next chapter of university, you'd said.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Proud mom.
Amazing, amazing. That all being said, life and a career in music especially is not all sunshines and rainbows.
Definitely not.
So the question I had for you was, thus up until now in your career, have there been any slow or low points in the journey? And would you mind sharing an experience you're comfortable with that it was super challenging and how you were able to overcome it?
Well, I mean, it's definitely super challenging because nightlife itself is a rough place.
Yeah, it's heavy.
You know, it's not only that you go and play in the club, you are surrounded by multiple things, you know. First of all, it's alcohol, there are of course substances involved, and I'm lucky that I'm not even smoking cigarettes, I don't take any substances, I drink sometimes. But I know that for some other artists might be a challenge, you know, to not go down this rabbit hole of the nightlife structure basically. So going to party after playing or partying too hard while you're playing, because this can have like a rat tail dragging behind you. If you're too tired, maybe you miss your flight, maybe you're not creative, you can't go to the studio, you miss deadlines. It can have an effect. I don't say it has to, but it definitely has on some people. So this is definitely challenging to stay focused and responsible, because I cannot just be wasted and then go back home and take care of my child. Also, I want to be a good role model,
Right.
you know?
Yeah.
So, of course, sometimes you party maybe a little bit or drink something, fair enough. But it's definitely challenging for me it was challenging not to be able to progress maybe as fast as I wanted to, because I would have had to sacrifice the other part, which means leaving my daughter, for example, for weeks with, I don't know, maybe the grandmother who also does not live in Berlin and she's still working. So sometimes I thought I'm a little bit in a disadvantage, you know, because I'm not as free as I want to be. It has an effect on your mindset because you're like, oh, will I ever make it? Everybody's passing by me. I only see the taillights of them. And I cannot do as much as I want to do. And so with that comes doubt, you know, you doubt yourself and you're like, oh, maybe I'm not good enough. Or can I even do it? You know, I have this child. Should I even do it?
Right.
Am I a bad mom if I'm a DJ at night? And, you know, so you have all these questions in your head and self-doubt. And I had ups and downs with that, for sure, definitely. You know, and sometimes, I mean, after all, even if DJing is super fun, I really love it, but it's also a job like every other job, you know? And sometimes you stand behind the booth and you think like, what am I doing here? You know, you see the people dance, they're like, wah, partying, champagne bottles are popping, you know, like, I'm like, I'm 45, wait a second. Or 40, or whoever, how old you are.
Yeah.
But talking about myself, I'm like, is this still something, you know?
Right.
But then I think, no, I love that. Despite that craziness, that nightlife, but this moment when people come together, sharing a good time, forgetting whatever you have to deal with on a daily basis, the work you have, you know, the struggles you have. Everybody comes together to have this good time, to shake the day off, to shake everything off for that moment of coming together and sharing this moment, you know?
Yes.
In synchronicity, like dancing, looking at each other, being friends for the night maybe. Just, you know, I don't know, you're a stranger, but hey, let's dance, let's toast and have a good time, you know?
Yeah.
So I really like that, and to be a part of that, to provide the soundtrack to that.
You're the catalyst.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's something magical sometimes. And sometimes I even get goosebumps when I play some tracks which are emotional and I can see the people are touched. I'm also like, woo, I'm like totally into it because I'm also a DJ. I'm dancing a lot. I'm like always like, whoa, like dancing with the people. I can't be like this. I have to move, you know, I have to transport that energy. And so in these moments, I'm like, I love to do that. This is great. It makes me feel good. It makes other people feel good. I enjoy this. But there are definitely down moments when you question yourself. You know, can I do this? Am I good enough to do this? What's next? how long should I do this? I think that's totally normal. Most of artists do have that, I believe.
Yeah, absolutely. I can agree for myself too. Is there anything like what do you turn to, or what gives you strength in those super adverse moments to keep pushing and to sort of push yourself back onto that positive level?
Mm. As I mentioned earlier, it's definitely to, I mean, go back into yourself and imagine a life when you do not have this. The alternative life, is it something you would prefer more? And if your heart, for example, if you have always these doubts and this coming out all the time and you think about something else and it gives you more peace, then you really should consider, is this something you want to do? Because like I said, DJing looks fun, it's great, but there is pressure, there is stress. You travel, I'm constantly alone traveling. I don't have a partner. How should I find somebody,
Right.
First of all, when I come home, I want to make time for my daughter. And when I'm on the road, I'm basically alone traveling, Sometimes, of course, like my manager comes with me as a tour manager, but not all the time, of course. But pulling me out, I always try to imagine, okay, if I would not do this right now, what would be the alternative? Is it something I like? Yes. Okay, then I maybe, if it's something I don't like, no. So I really focus again on why am I doing it and what does it give to me, Like, how do I feel about it? And then I really try to go back into myself and try not to beat me up too much and really look back on what I actually achieved and what I had to do to achieve that. And this is some validation, and because only you can validate yourself, nobody else, You cannot look for validation from other people. That's going to make you miserable, because you look left and right, Instagram, all these kind of things. No, you have to give yourself the validation. Look at what you did, the process you made, because only you know what you gave into, what you have achieved for yourself, what work you had to do to get a certain point. Only you know that. And also to see how far you got, and just to be thankful. And I think this kind of takes you out of it a little bit. And of course, when I think about what I was able to provide for my daughter with this job, this also helps a lot.
Wow, amazing. Yeah. So many gems of wisdom there. Yeah.
Oh, thank you.
I'm sure the viewers can get a lot from that. Yeah.
Yeah, but the most thing is, because of course, we're all in our heads, and as much confident as you might look to the outside, we all have this little voice sometimes like, nah. So it's really, you really have to really go back into yourself and find that point, like this. No, I got you. Like, I got myself.
Yeah, you got this.
Yes.
No doubt. Amazing. Thank you for sharing.
Welcome.
Couple more questions to close off this amazing discussion. Honestly, I mean this genuinely, one of my favorites so far.
Oh, there was one. Flattered. Thank you so much.
Actually, I had this interesting moment. We were talking about how when we DJ, there's this one track that you feel you have the crowd and you get that momentum and that energy. And for me, it was asking the question about the black coffee thing, because to hear it was such a special moment for you and how passionate you were about it, how much it meant to you. I felt like that really lifted off the conversation. Yes. So yeah, it was really nice.
Yeah, but also that track I played, it just fit. It was boom, and the party started because everybody was like, okay, who's this girl? Never heard her name. Playing with black coffee. The booth was kind of full. All people eyes on me. And I was like, oh my God, don't fuck this up. Yeah. Don't fuck this up. Make the transition right. I hope this works, Like really, like all the voices, like, oh my God, so many things. And it just worked.
Wow. Amazing.
But yeah.
Yeah, cool. So my last couple questions here for today are, in this moment, who are your favorite DJ producers that are actively gigging right now and releasing music?
Yeah, I think I would like to highlight my female colleagues.
Cool.
To draw more attention to this.
Amazing.
So there are actually a few I, first of all, admire and who give me really inspiration. I mean, of course, somebody like Chloe Caillet, when I first time heard of her, I didn't know who she was, and then I was checking her out and I was like, wow, she has a great style and she's so much herself. I really admire that, because she is purely who she is. And I love the music she produces. It has something so playful and, I don't know, easy, but it's super cool, and I like the way she plays. I had the pleasure to hear her play at Circo Loco a couple of times. I was like, I like that, you know. She has lots of energy.
Cool.
So I really think she's super cool. Then she's actually my dear colleague. It's not why I mention her, but I think she's super cool, Fiona Kraft.
Amazing talent. Yes.
She plays really good, super strong, very energetic. You would not maybe expect it from her because she appears to be a little bit quiet, but her energy is really infectious, and she's a really great producer. You know, I like her sound a lot, and so this is also inspiration to me. And then there are artists which are a little bit more undergroundish. Her name is Bashka. I really like her. I think she's from Turkey. Yeah, so cool. I like the sound she's producing. It's very underground, very like housey, you know, back in the days. And I like this vibe a lot.
Nice.
And of course, there are a couple of more I could fill up the list on and on and on, you know. As a favorite DJ, it's Desiree for sure.
Oof,
oh my God, this woman, I mean.
Pure flow.
She is, you just love to look at her, how she plays, the selection. She has always a really great selection. And so it always feels so effortless when she plays.
Yeah.
You know?
Yes.
So I really like that. And I'm happy to see how she carved her way now. And of course, as a fellow Black woman, you know, to have somebody to be successful like that. I think it's also a great role model to other, especially women of color, you know, because there are not so many. I mean, there are definitely many DJs, female person of color, but let's say in the actual limelight, you know, you only have like a few. And so I'm happy that from the newer generation, you have somebody like her and like opening the doors maybe for other artists to come, you know. So
absolutely,
it's very special, I think.
Cool. All great names. All right, my last question of the day. So imagine there's a DJ producer out there right now. They're doing some gigs, some local gigs, maybe traveling a little bit even, releasing some music on smaller labels, but really ambitious to go to the next level. Given the era we're in with social media, given the fact that DJing has become such a popular and trendy thing to become, in my opinion, my humble opinion, the market's become quite saturated with so many DJs and everybody producing now. What are a few pieces of advice you could offer that could help advance their careers?
That's a good question. I'm not so sure if I can really answer that from an expertise standpoint because I'm still myself sorting out my journey of production. And I was lucky, as I told you before, that most releases kind of fell into place in one way or another. You know, either the label asked me directly, you know, the artist asked me for the remixes. So I'm not so sure if I'm in a position from my personal experience and knowledge to give them advices, but what I could think of also directly then talking to myself in the mirror, you know, I could imagine, and this is really hypothetical, I could imagine a good way would be maybe to look at labels who also are having showcases. You know, a lot of labels who have showcases, who maybe even run a festival. And of course, if you release on a label like that, it's very likely you might be picked to play on a showcase, party format festival, you know. I don't know, let's say Crosstown Rebels is a good example, you know.
Yeah.
Something like that. This is just what I would think from the top of my head right now. So look in the mirror, Jamiie. No, and I think that would be maybe a possibility. And other than that, of course, like what everybody should do, send out their tracks to different artists. Hopefully they play them, you know, to gain some attention. Maybe they play it and there's a video of it. You get the video. It's definitely exposure for yourself. And it's always good if you have a great video with your track. You have leverage when you show it to an agency, to a label, you know, like I have this track, look, this is how the people react to it. This person XYZ played it. This could be something. And yeah, regarding anything else, I'm still learning myself.
Cool. Yeah, I mean, some
Yeah.
great advice in there. Some of the stuff I wrote down that you mentioned was the vision board thing. I'm a huge fan of that. I ended up, because I
I,
moved to Bali, I made a vision book just
yeah.
so I could bring it with me. You know what I mean?
To be honest, for me, a vision board is a must. And it's not this creepy manifestation thing like you write it down and magically things are falling onto you. This is, I don't want to say I don't believe in the power of manifestation. I really do believe in that, but there are certain things you have to do yourself to get into that direction. You have to work towards it. You cannot just write it on the vision board, sit back and manifest it, and then all of a sudden it magically appears. This is not what happens. It's not like this. I know. I saw this. There was one book about it. You know, the I forgot. Whatever.
Yeah.
So yes, but to have a vision board is to visualize what you have in your head, to put it on a piece of paper or on a computer, digitally, in Word document, keynotes, whatever you're using, to see it with your eyes, because then it becomes a little bit more real, right? When you start to read it. And then you start to find ways how you could achieve these goals. And then you maybe work towards it. Yeah, let's say you want to release on label XYZ. Maybe you start to, I don't know, send your tracks to people who released on that label already, or maybe start to even produce more in this direction, although you should never produce a track to fit on a specific label, right?
Yeah.
But it starts to create pathways to that goal.
Yes.
You know, for example, I had also goals on my vision board, like doing finally the driving license, which I never had until 2017.
Whoa.
You know what I mean? I never did it because I don't need it. But then I was like, no, now I want to do it. So I had it on my vision board. And then I started to look into driving schools because I had it on my vision board. And then I was putting the driving schools underneath. And then I was checking, okay, how much does it cost anyways? You know, so you start the ball rolling. And then this is why a vision board is super important.
Yeah, it reminds me of this phrase. They say, out of sight, out of mind.
100%.
But it's the opposite in this case, insight in mind.
Yes.
With the vision board.
Exactly.
Cool,
so
cool.
This is my ultimate tip for sure.
Amazing, amazing. Well, in closing, I just want to take a moment to acknowledge you. I think you're on a great path right now, and congratulations and more power to you. Full support from my side. And also, I just wanted to make sure you know how grateful I am for you to come and join me on this podcast. It's a brand new project, and the first few guests that I've gotten have been of amazing stature like yourself and success. So I'm super humble and grateful to have this experience with you.
Thank you for having me. Sorry I interrupted you.
It's okay. It's okay.
It's one of my superpowers. Like, because I'm so bubbly in nature.
Yes.
You know, really, I try to settle myself sometimes, but I can help it. It's my personality. I'm like, more, on the happy side, I guess. But thank you so much for having me. It's an honor to be part in the early beginnings of your podcast, and I wish you lots of success with this format. I hope that many more amazing artists will take time and find their way into the studio to sit down here with you. And I really enjoyed this interview as well.
Amazing. Thank you.
And I wish you the very same with your career, because I know you're a DJ as well and doing your music. So wish you all the best with that as well. And
oh man, it means so much.
Path again.
I hope so too. Thank you so much. Guys, make sure you support Jamiie online. Thanks so much for watching. Again, subscribe, like, comment. We'll see you in the next interview. Love.
Bye.